Using and securing the original Bitcoin client. Let's begin. In the Bitcoin community today, oh my goodness, there's some fantastic services like blockchain.info. We went up there in a previous nugget, we logged in, we said we want to create a new account. It just created an e-wallet for us, no problem. It also had multi-factor authentication, fantastic. Well, back in the early days, which was not that many years ago, we didn't have those third-party services. And if you wanted to participate in the Bitcoin network, you'd have to install some software. And the good news is you can still do that today if you'd like to. It's called the original Bitcoin client software. And you download it. I'll give you the URL for that here in a moment. It installs on your PC. As part of that install, it's going to create a wallet on your PC, a wallet.dat file. And then you could actually directly interact. You don't need to go to Blockchain Info or anybody else as a wallet service provider. You can go ahead and do everything on your own and directly interact with the rest of the Bitcoin network. Now, right out of the gate, I want to talk about security just for a moment again, because it's so important. If we're talking about, and you and I are, if we're talking about creating our wallets and keeping them on our computer, if somebody steals that wallet, and if somebody knows the passwords to open and unlock that wallet, there's nothing stopping that user from moving all of our Bitcoin and transferring them out of our wallet to somebody else's address. Once the Bitcoin network verifies that, which only takes a few moments, it's over and there's no recourse. So if we're responsible for our wallets, we want to be very, very careful of how we handle them. I'll have another complete nugget on the paranoid approach to securing our wallets. But I just want to point out that all these steps that you can possibly take to secure your computer, to make sure that it doesn't have malware, keyloggers, spyware, etc., those should all be taken to the utmost to do everything we can to protect our wallets. So, having said that, how do we get started with this? Our first step is to download the actual original Bitcoin client. Now, when I say the original Bitcoin client, it's not the same version it was, like, say, a year ago. So they keep updating the version information. But the original client is the one that installs on your computer. It keeps your wallet on your computer. And your computer is the one that directly interacts with the rest of the Bitcoin network. So the question is, where exactly would I get this client? And the easiest way to get it is to go to bitcoin.org. So by going to bitcoin.org, which is a lot easier to spell than sourceforge.net, and hopefully have less typos, you can go to the download area, and then here there's a flavor for Windows, Ubuntu, Linux, and Mac. You select the one that you want. That will take you over to sourceforge.net for the actual download of that software. Once it's downloaded, you simply install it based on your operating system, which can be slightly different. For example, on Windows, if you download the EXE, you'd simply go ahead and launch that executable, and that would start the setup program. Now, once we've installed the software, the next thing that's going to happen once we launch the program of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin client, the Bitcoin client's going to say, you know what? I wonder what everybody else is doing. I wonder how big the blockchain is. And the client says, I would like a copy of it. And we're saying, really? You, Mr. Client, you want a copy of the full blockchain? You want every transaction from the beginning of Bitcoin? And it says, yes, I want to keep and help manage that blockchain, the entire record of all the transactions. So what it does, it's going to connect to the Bitcoin network and it's going to synchronize the entire blockchain. Now, one question would be, well, I wonder how big that is. And we can answer that question just by going online and taking a look at it. Let's do that right now. And to determine the size of our blockchain, let's go ahead and go to Blockchain Info. They've got a whole bunch of charts in this section right here. And this is the blockchain size. So here's the beginning of Bitcoin. And for a long time, it looks like from the beginning, near the beginning of the first quarter of 2009, all the way till July of 2011, pretty much not very big. That's because it was just being developed, not a lot of transactions happening on, so the blockchain wasn't very large. Then we had this jump here in July of 2011 to January 2012, and right now it is very close to the end of January 2013. So we are right here, and this is the actual size. So right now we're somewhere between 4.5 and 5 gigabytes in size for the entire blockchain. So if we install the client, it's going to synchronize with the network. It's going to try to get a copy, not going to try, it will get a copy of the complete blockchain. And that process, by the way, may take well over 24 hours, even on a decent machine, as it collects all that information and has its own copy of the entire blockchain. Regarding the install and take a break, I'm talking about that 24 plus hours it's going to take to get the entire copy of the blockchain. Also, If you plan on moving this to an encrypted volume with TrueCrypt or some other method, you also may want to consider that if you're going to move all the data to a TrueCrypt volume, you may want to have enough room to support it. So currently, if it's like 4.5 or 5 gigs in size and it's currently growing, you may want to plan for some additional capacity so you don't run out of space on that encrypted volume. So what I'd like to do is walk you through what it looks like when the Bitcoin client comes up. I've already got it installed. I've just launched it. And in the background it's coming up, so it's loading the block index. And what happens is if this wallet, this client has been sitting idle for more than 10 minutes, a new block is created about every 10 minutes. So if I've missed 20 or 30 blocks, it's going to synchronize with the rest of the network. And that's what this is representing right here. It's saying, you know what? There is a problem. The problem is I am out of sync. I don't have the entire transaction history, if you will, the entire blockchain on this device. So what it's going to do, it's going to go ahead and synchronize, and it just did. I paused the screen for my pen functionality. I had this on not too long ago, so it was mostly current. And down here, it's representing now that I've got synchronization with the Bitcoin network. Fantastic. Now, originally, this looks great. Like, wow, 73 Bitcoin. But see that M right there? One of our options, if we go to settings and options, we can specify how we want it to be viewed. For example, we want the display to be in millibitcoins or microbitcoins. A microbitcoin is moving the decimal point over 6 positions, and millibitcoins is moving it over 3 positions. And then if we just say bitcoins, it's just going to show us as it is. So if we want it to be represented in bitcoins, we simply say in display, please show as bitcoins, click apply or OK. Either one would do it. And now it's showing up in Bitcoin. So now instead of showing 73 millibitcoin and change, it's now showing 0.073 in BTC. Whichever way you want to view it, that's absolutely great. One of the first things we'd want to do, now this account currently has some very small transactions in it. One of the very first things you'd want to do is encrypt our wallet file. And that wallet file, once we have the entire blockchain copied over and it's all synchronized, we go up to settings and simply select encrypt wallet. And that's going to use some very serious AES encryption to encrypt our wallet. So if somebody does steal our wallet, it's still not going to be too useful to an attacker unless he also knows the password that we specified when we use the encrypt wallet option. Now, does this make it safe? The answer is it makes it a lot safer than if you don't encrypt the wallet. However, if there's a keylogger hidden in your system that's keeping track of all your keystrokes, and somebody now knows the password you used to encrypt your wallet, if they get a copy of that wallet and they know the password, that individual is going to be able to transfer Bitcoin out of your wallet if they have both of those things, the wallet itself and they have the password to decrypt it. And that leads us to this next point here. You can also change your passphrase. You're going to have to know what the previous one is. And it's going to prompt us for what the existing passphrase is and what we want the new one to be. That way the attacker can't just say, okay, I'm going to change the password and poof, put in their own password without having to know what the previous one is. And that goes back to a really strong password, upper and lowercase, alphanumeric, special characters, 2 or 3 words put together. All of those things are going to help build a more secure password that's resistant to a brute force attack of some type. So let's take a look at our checklist together. We took a look at downloading the software, installing it, making sure we give it a long time to sync, and it will tell us. It'll stop saying I'm out of sync, and there'll be a little check mark in the bottom right. We want to encrypt the wallet through the settings option we just looked at. And then what I would recommend is moving the wallet to an encrypted drive. And this would give us just the extra protection. In the previous nugget, we took a look at TrueCrypt, which is a free, open source, and very effective encryption tool to create a brand new volume. What we could do is say, I want to take all that content, the blockchain, which is now, close to 5 gig, and my wallet.dat file, and copy that all over to my TrueCrypt volume. So that way it goes something like this. We boot up the computer. If you're not dealing with Bitcoin that day, you don't even have to mount that volume. Just let it sit at rest encrypted. But if you're doing a transaction with Bitcoin, need to send something, no problem. You simply mount the volume, you launch the Bitcoin client, which is using the data on that encrypted volume, and then you can send out the money. Your account, your Bitcoin client doesn't have to be online for people to send money to your account. That's all verified by the Bitcoin network. If you have your computer off for like 5 or 10 days and you turn it on, all the transactions that were coming to your address, which are effectively coming towards your wallet, those will all show up once you boot up and synchronize with the rest of the network. So your computer doesn't have to be on 24/7 for you to receive Bitcoin. And that's another way of protecting your wallet, is by putting it onto an encrypted drive. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to walk you through that process. It's pretty simple. The process of creating a TrueCrypt drive was in the previous nugget. I'd like to now walk you through the steps of moving your Bitcoin client data files over to that same location. Now, to pull this off, I'm going to do some very specific things. Number one, I've got the Bitcoin client currently running. It's all synchronized. I'm going to close it, make sure it's not running and not using the files anymore. It's wallet.dat or any of the blockchain files that it's collected. I want to make sure it's at rest and not actively connected to those files on my file system. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and mount a drive in TrueCrypt. Now, I have the drive we had in the previous nugget. I'm going to go ahead and use that one again. I've already created the volume. It's not mounted at the moment. Let's go ahead and say we want to mount it. So we'll go ahead and say I want to select my file. That file was on my F drive. I think I put it in working, and the file is boring.mov. So I'm going to go ahead and click on open, and then I'll go ahead and mount it. I want to mount it right there as drive. Let's put it on drive X. X is an X-ray, and click on mount. Now it's going to ask me for my password for the mounting of that encrypted volume, which I'll supply. And after a few moments, it's now mounted. Now I have a 10 gig drive. Now for today, 10 gig is probably enough, but will it be enough for 6 months from now or a year from now? And the answer is potentially no, as we get bigger and bigger blockchain. So you want to make sure you have enough room, or if you're getting close to the 10 gig, you want to plan on moving this to another location that has the space. But the benefit is that if we use this for the storage of the blockchain and our wallet.dat, even though the wallet.dat is encrypted through the client because of what we just did previously in settings, we can take an extra step of encrypting the entire content, everything, including our wallet, inside of a new encrypted volume. So now that this drive is mounted, it's drive X, which is great, the next thing we'd want to do is move the files. So we need to find the wallet and find the blockchain information wherever it is and copy it over to that volume. We could even make a folder called Bitcoin and put everything there. Now the trick is, where exactly are these files kept? To actually find where the files are, that might be a little challenging because it's put in different places on different operating systems. So on Windows, if you go to Run and say Explorer and then %appdata all uppercase and then /Bitcoin uppercase B, it's going to show you and take you in Explorer to that location. And that'll usually end up being on XP at this location, or on Windows 7 this location, or in future versions of Windows perhaps a different location. But this should drive it out and tell you exactly where it is. On Linux, it'd be here, and on Mac, it'd be here. I've also put this file called Where is Data Directory for Original Client.txt. I've put that up inside the Nugget Lab download area. So if you want to download it, you'll have this link, and it has additional details on where you would find it and how you could possibly search for it. Another thing that I'd like to mention that I discovered was that this is a hidden folder inside of Windows. So inside of your view options, you might want to specify that you want to see hidden and system files. So it actually shows you that if you're looking inside the file structure for this folder called app data. Once we've identified where that is, what we're going to do is we're going to take, in this case I have on a Windows 7 machine, I'm going to take this entire folder of Bitcoin, which has my wallet.dat file and the blockchain information, and the client at the moment is turned off. I'm going to copy all of that over to the X drive. So we can put on X and Bitcoin. So I should be able to just do a copy of this data, this entire folder, from here over to the X drive, and that will create this folder called Bitcoin. It'll be the same name if I drag and drop it, and then I'll create it over here, and it'll copy all of the data. The next step would then be to tell my Bitcoin client that I want to start using this as the data directory instead of using the original location where the software put those files. So here are all the files that make up my Bitcoin client data files. It looks like I have block 1, 2, and 3 that are part of the blockchain. I've also got my wallet.dat file. Now if we want to get the whole folder, we can go back just to roaming. And for Bitcoin, let's take a look at how big this is real quick. So I'm right-clicking on the Bitcoin folder, and that, wow, it's 6.48 gigs. So that's the entire blockchain plus my wallet file and whatever other files it needs to support it. And what I want to do is take all of this information and copy it. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and cancel. I'm going to right-click on Bitcoin. I'm going to go ahead and say copy, and then we're going to go to the destination where we want to put this, and that's on the X drive. So to do that, I'm just going to go back to my computer, and there I should have, under my computer, I should have the X drive. There it is. And there's my 3 configuration files that we put there in the previous nugget. Those are fine. I'm still going to right-click, and I'm going to say paste. And that's going to create the new Bitcoin folder and it should copy all of those files over to that folder. Now, this entire file structure, volume X, it really is just one file, that boring.mov file, which is playing the role of this volume. So the operating system is totally cool with all of this. So once we have all of this data copied over this new location, we simply need to tell our Bitcoin client that we want to use the X drive and this folder called Bitcoin as its data directory, and it'll pick up right there and continue trucking. So in the future, when we use Bitcoin, we would mount the volume first, open up the client, it would synchronize with the rest of the network, and all the data would be stored on our encrypted volume. The other thing we definitely want to do is, if we're not using the original Bitcoin folder anymore, because it does have our private keys at that moment, we want to go ahead and delete that off of our file system and make sure it's really gone. Make sure it's not just deleted where somebody could do a restore from the trash can or anything else. We want to totally scrub and get rid of that old Bitcoin folder that has our private keys in the wallet file. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, we don't need to wait. We just can't run the client and you have to use these new files until they're there, but we can certainly set up the icon for it. So here's what we're going to do. In this same document, where is the data directory, I also have this little gem right here. And this little gem is what we're going to add to the startup icon for the Bitcoin client. So if you're launching Bitcoin from the start menu, or if you have it locked to the taskbar, wherever you launch Bitcoin client from, based on the install, we're going to modify that option for launching it to include this new data directory. So let's open the properties of the actual icon I'm using to launch Bitcoin. So I simply right-clicked on the icon, and I said I want to go to properties of it, not start it. And all we're going to do is we're going to add. So here's the program that's running. That's the Bitcoin client. And we're going to add on to the end of it this thing right here. I'm going to just copy that and go back to the client and say with a space and paste it in. So effectively, it's launching the Bitcoin client as it normally was, and then I added a space and this dash data dir equals the volume of X colon and then the slash Bitcoin to tell it what folder they were going to be in. And you know, one other thing I'm going to do is, because it was Bitcoin with a capital B, I'm just going to err on the side of caution, and I'm going to put a capital B there just to make it match literally what the folder that we created. It was a capital B. And that way I can just err on the side of caution in case anybody's caring about whether that's upper or lowercase. I can have it match exactly. So let me save this file. The file save. That's in the Nugget download area, Nugget Lab download area. And I'm also going to click OK here, so that when the file copy is finally complete and all that data is over there, I can then go ahead and simply launch that from that icon, and it should use this new data directory. Let me minimize this out of the way. It looks like the copy is completely done. What we should do is go check real quick. And to check, I'm going to go back up to the Bitcoin. This is the new folder. I'm going to right click and go to properties, and I'm hoping it's about the same size, which it is. That's fantastic. So if it was like 2 gigs or 3 gigs and I'm expecting 6.5 gigs for the whole folder, we definitely want to make sure that all the data was there, and it looks like it is. So now that that's in place, I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to click on OK. And let's go back to our original folder, which is right here. And I'm going to rename this just temporarily. I'm going to call this ORG. I just want to make sure that I'm pointing to the right data files, that I'm not pointing to the original ones anymore. So now that that's done, let's launch our Bitcoin client once again. To do that, I'm going to click on the icon that we just modified that pointed to the new data directory. And that brings up the wallet, and it's going to go ahead and use the new data directory, hopefully. If it has an error where it can't find the wallet.dat or can't initialize, we did something wrong, but this looks like it's coming up okay. And once it comes up, it's going to synchronize with the rest of the network. So it's saying right now, out of sync. I don't have all the current block information. It's been more than 10 minutes. So it's going to go ahead and synchronize, which didn't take long. It's already synchronized, and now it's using that new content, our new wallet in that X drive. Now, once I was sure that this was working, we could take the original Bitcoin folder and delete it off of our file system. The other thing that we might want to do periodically is, now we have an encrypted wallet, we have the whole Bitcoin data directory in an encrypted volume, which is good news. We also may want to back up our wallet occasionally. And to do that, we go to File, Backup Wallet right here, and then you simply point to where you want to go ahead and save it. So if you want to go to the X drive, you could go to the same folder and say, okay, here's my Bitcoin, and let's make a new folder called backup. And then we can name it whatever we want. So we'll call it backup 1 as an example, or some other meaningful name. Click on save, and now that's backed up. Now, the problem is this. If we really were concerned about security, and we are, we wouldn't want to have our backup on the same disk that we have the wallet file on, because if our computer crashed, we would lose all of it. So we might want to make that backup to a separate location that we could store, maybe a separate volume that we could then copy and save off of that physical media so we have it safe and sound somewhere. But backing up your wallet regularly is a great idea, because behind the scenes, there's public and private keys, and this client is automatically generating new ones in the background for additional transactions. So we definitely want to make sure that every time you do any kind of a significant transaction, that you back up your wallet.dat file so that you could restore it with the most current information. In this nugget, we've taken a look at using the original flavor Bitcoin client on our own computer and taking some additional steps, including encrypting the wallet through the built-in encryption option in the client itself. And then we moved all of the data to an encrypted volume to keep it even that much more secure. After all that, we'd still want to do periodic backups, like every time we have major transactions, so that if we ever need to restore our wallet, we can do that as well. I strongly recommend that you keep your backups on a separate physical media than the original wallet itself. That way, if you lose the entire wallet, you don't lose your backups along with it. I've had a lot of fun. I appreciate you joining me in this nugget. I hope this information has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.